Hey, Feisty friends, Feisty CEO Sarah here. And if you are not yet coming to Feisty Fest this September, I need you to hear me out just for 60 seconds. Feisty Fest is the event that we built for you, our beloved Feisty audience. It is taking place September 18th to 20th in Lehigh Valley, Pennsylvania, close to major airports. So here's how Feisty Fest started. We asked ourselves, what would an event look like if women were actually the default? Not an afterthought, not a modified version of something built for men, actually genuinely designed for us. It's not a training camp, it's not a race, it's not a conference. It's a little bit of all three wrapped into one incredible weekend where you get to challenge yourself to do new things, learn about women's specific physiology, nutrition advice, and skills for your mental game, and be completely surrounded by your people. 3 days where you get to ride gorgeous Pennsylvania gravel, try the velodrome, we have track bikes you can try, lift heavy, run trails, or play a game of pickleball. And you can do the things you love and learn something new. And in between bouts of exercise, you can sit with some of the most incredible experts in women's health and performance, the ones who are talking about the stuff that actually matters to women. Celine Yeager, Kate Verano, Cassie Neiman, Molly Herford, and more. This is the room you've been looking for. And trust me, you will leave a different person. Head to feisty.co to grab your ticket. And if you're one of the first 100, you get a free Feisty crewneck sweatshirt, including art by the amazing Lisa Congdon. They are going fast, so don't wait. Go to feisty.co right now. See you in September.
All right, Feisties, welcome to a very special episode today. I'm Kelly O'Mara, and I am here with two of our expert coaches, Katie Zaferes, who you all know and love, and Alison Freeman, who is one of our experts who will be at Feisty Fest. And Alison, you're going to be leading some skills clinics, some get started in triathlon, right?
Yeah, I think a run skills clinic and then a try curious conversation for people who are interested in triathlon but aren't quite sure how to make the jump into the sport.
Yes, I know we're going to have a lot of runners there so they can get fully started. And Alison's a Level III triathlon coach. She co-owns NYX Endurance. And so I thought we'd have like a good balance here where you have a lot of age group athletes. Katie has a lot of up and coming juniors. And juniors isn't the right word, is it, Katie? It's like...
No, it's not, but that's okay.
They're 20-something.
Yeah.
They're still kids in my head. Yeah.
And mine too.
I know. So I told you, though, I was going to ask you, so... to get started, what does your day look like? What kind of training are you doing these days, Alison? What are you excited about these days? Are you excited about anything?
Well, so I'm, my training is and racing has taken a bit of a backseat. So I'm still doing the things, but I'm actually spending a lot of time, on my book that comes out in October.
Unlocking Triathlon, right?
Unlocking Triathlon, yeah. So that comes out in October. I'm in the final editing stage. I had no idea how long it took to write a book.
How long does it take?
Yeah. It'll be 2 years from the time we really started until it hits the shelves.
Pretty good. What's the normal?
It probably is. I had no idea what to expect. Apparently, this is how long it takes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think there's like some publishing houses now that are kind of trying to do a more like you churn them out in like 3 months, so you're on or 4 till they on like be super hot topic. But I feel like that probably sacrifices. I was reading a book yesterday where a couple sentences repeated, and it was clearly a mistake. And then I was like, oh, they tried to get this out the door very quickly.
You did not take 2 years to do this.
The sad thing is that even with 2 years, I guarantee there will be something in there that like I'm trying to find all the stuff, but there's going to be an errant like and or the that's repeated. There's no way to find them all.
Well, maybe you'll have readers like me who, when I find them, I'm always like, yeah, found the mistake. Like I get really excited that I paid that much attention to it that I could figure it out.
Okay, that makes me feel better. That's a gift. Then that's a gift that I'll just deliver to people.
Well, I thought I would ask you because, we were kind of talking before we got on, and this is going to air. We're recording this almost a week before. So it'll air, and it'll be old news by then. But right now, they just announced Chattanooga 70.3. And I was telling you, I'd been waiting to find out where Worlds was going to be to see if it like sparked a desire to try and qualify. And it did not. I didn't there was no, and I'm a big believer, and maybe you guys can tell me as coaches, I'm a big believer in like, you got to follow your gut on like wanting to do something, right? So now, since my gut said I don't want to go to Chattanooga in August, which I'm sure it's like, guys, it's lovely. Don't message me. Chattanooga's a lovely place. I've been there, but it's hot. I don't want to do it. So now I'm waiting for so I need suggestions, guys. Is this a good strategy? Should I just wait for something to excite me?
I think that is a good strategy. I totally agree that you should only do a race if it excites you. And I think that if there's nothing out there that's exciting you, that if you do, you'll wait and something will catch your eye. And especially like because I'm sure you're having conversations with all kinds of people all the time, because it could be something totally different, right? It could be a, ultra run. It could be a gravel race, but something will spark it, or you'll just get enough. It might even not be the event, but you'll know a bunch of people who are doing it. And so then the idea there with the people will be really fun.
I was going to say, I might be contrasting this.
Katie's waiting. Yeah.
Not that I think there's a time and a place to like definitely be excited for racing. But then in the moments that you're like not excited to race, it's like finding what would excite you, even if it's not that like all-consuming feeling of like, oh, I'm super excited to race Chattanooga. Like, break it down. Like, what are you looking for? And can you find that in something that maybe doesn't scream at you like, yay, let's do it. But like, you can put yourself into like an maybe not uncomfortable situation, but like if you do it, you'll come out of it on the other side being like, oh, I'm so glad I did it. But it's not always presented as like, yay, let's do it.
Has a goal sparked your interest yet, Katie?
Okay, well, you're turning me back. No, actually, I think I've spoken about it now like multiple times, but there's a Brick Endurance series, which is like a really low key triathlon race in our area. They do it on Wednesday nights, and they have one every each of the summer months for 4 months. And I would like to do it, but I don't want to race my athletes. And right now I'm having them do it. And like, so there's one in September. I'm like, well, maybe no one will do it then. And then I'll race it. But that's basically my criteria right now is if I do a race, A, it can't like conflict with like what I'm doing coaching wise. And then B, I don't want anyone of my athletes to be in it with me. Not because I think I'll be competitive with them, but just because I don't know. There's
you think it like breaks down a wall, a line.
Yeah, like when they're getting ready for the race and then I'm on the start line getting ready for my race, it feels weird.
Obviously, we're just solving my problems right now. But what we're going to do in today's episode is we had all of you send in questions. We got some on Instagram. We had some people email. We got some from our other hosts, coaches in the Feisty universe. So we're going to do a whole bunch of coaches questions today. And this is like, I mean, some of them are beginner, but I will say some of them are pretty not beginner. Like we're talking like regular intense triathlete type questions. So we're going to take a quick break and then we're going to dive right into all of your questions. Feisties, you probably hear a lot about supplements and nutrition and what you should be adding. But what about the basics, the non-glamorous things, like fiber? Fiber is actually one of the most important and most often overlooked parts of your health. Most people don't get enough fiber consistently, and it affects more than just your gut. There is a whole gut, performance, brain, mood connection. So if your gut is functioning better, then you'll function better. Nothing fancy about it. And that's why Momentous has launched Fiber Plus, combining 3 different types of fiber, soluble and insoluble fiber with prebiotic-resistant starch, which allows you to absorb nutrients better and stabilize blood sugar. And personally, one of the things I appreciate about Momentous and why Feisty has partnered with them is that in an era of so many supplements that you can't trust, you can trust Momentous. All of their products are NSF certified for sport, meaning they're third-party tested, and Momentous isn't trying to sell you something you don't need, just helping you to do what you already do, but better. Try Momentous Fiber Plus and get 35% off your first order with the code FEISTYTRY at livemomentous.com. That's Feisty, Feisty, try, TRI, at livemomentous.com.
Feisties, have you ever wished there was a festival built entirely around active women where sport, learning, adventure and community are all rolled into one super fun weekend. If so, we have the perfect event for you. Feisty Fest is happening from September 18th to 20th in Pennsylvania. Fancy trying something new? Maybe give track cycling or pickleball a go. Do you love what you're already doing? Why not join the group runs, bike rides, swimming sessions, mountain biking, or strength workouts? You choose what you want to do and build your own perfect workout weekend in great company. Hear from expert coaches, athletes, and specialists sharing insights specifically for female athletes, helping you to train smarter, perform better, and stay healthy for the long haul. Whether you're chasing a new goal, making a comeback, or simply want to spend time with women who understand your passion for sport, you'll find your people at Feisty Fest. And who knows, your next training buddy, race partner, or Feisty bestie could be waiting there for you. Head to feisty.co to grab your ticket today. The link is in the show notes. Feisty Fest. Move, learn, connect. Your weekend adventure starts here.
All right, Coach's Corner. We have our two expert coaches, Katie and Alison. I'm going to hit you with these questions, and you're just going to bang out answers, all right?
We're good at that.
I know. So I figured we start with something very simple. What is the most common advice that you give new triathletes and then, triathletes who've been in it and they just want to up their game, step up, get faster?
For most common advice for new triathletes, it's like, and actually both, whether they're trying to up their game or just new to the sport, it's like going into races as like, let's see what I can do. And being really clear about those process goals that they're going to have within the race. I think for the new triathletes, maybe I want them to go into it with just enough that they feel comfortable and confident, but not so stringent that they feel like, oh my gosh, there's so many things I need to do. So kind of finding that balance. And then maybe with the more seasoned ones, like those goals are a lot more like dialed in and clear than with the beginners.
So it's funny because you approach the question from a racing standpoint, and I definitely I approached it more from a training standpoint. So my big thing for new triathletes is I see a lot of athletes who want to become triathletes who decide to kind of go big and they're going to sign up for a 70.3 or an Ironman, and they've never done the training. They've maybe never even seen someone else do the training. They don't really know what they're getting into. So I really recommend kind of doing the training to some extent before you sign up for the race. Because if you're going to be like for a 70.3 or an Ironman, you're training 8, 12, 14 plus hours a week for months on end. And that may or may not be something that you find fun. And it's probably better to find that out before you sign up for the race. So that's kind of my new triathlete advice for athletes who are looking to up their game and kind of more seasoned triathletes. That's where you have to train smarter, right? It's not necessarily about training more and just adding more volume, but you want to train smarter. And so I feel like that's where a coach really comes in handy, because you can either figure out how to be smarter on your own, right? Figure out how to train for a triathlon on your own, or you can turn to a coach who has spent years perfecting that kind of that skill and that guidance, and they can tell you how to train smarter.
That is one of the questions we did get, because how do I know if I need a coach? And we hear a lot from our Feisties, I'm not a professional athlete. I'm just doing this for fun. Why would I need a coach, right? I'm not serious.
So many reasons though. I think so triathlon, if you're not trying to win a race or win the Olympics, it's a personal journey, right? It's a hobby, and it's something that's very fulfilling for a lot of people. And if you are looking to kind of have more support in your journey and how you're growing along that journey, then that's where a coach comes in handy. And coach can help you train smarter and, train and race to the best of your potential, but they also help you navigate all the different things that you're juggling along with triathlon, because for a lot of people, it's not their full-time job. And then, but also kind of raise your triathlon IQ. So not only are you doing better workouts, there's better workouts on your calendar, but you are better informed about how to approach those workouts. And you learn about fueling and race strategies and all of those kinds of things. So there's a lot that a coach can bring for every athlete. And I coach mostly middle and back of the pack athletes, and I coach athletes who only do short course races. So there's no rule about you have to be this kind of an athlete in order to have a coach.
Yeah, and it's funny because I think like often the coach can provide a perspective that you as an athlete won't see. Whereas like you might look at a session and be like, "Wow, that was a terrible session." Like, and then the coach is going to look at it and have maybe a different perspective on it, and be able to um, help you through those aspects of training that are like pretty challenging, or like just like Allison was saying, I think one of the biggest reasons is just when you're juggling a lot of things, being able to dial in like the swim, bike, run, and it's specific to your strengths and weaknesses, not just like a average thing. I don't even know what an average person is in triathlon, swimming, biking, and running, but like it will make it more personalized to see how much time should you spend in the water or on the bike or on the run doing strength. Do you need a bike fit? Should you talk to a sports psychologist? And like not everybody is looking for all of those like pieces that are coming out of just swimming and biking and running, but you can get as holistic as you want, or you can stay as like basic as you want.
And this is maybe a more advanced question, but somebody also wanted to know, how do they know, if their coach is working or when it's time to leave a coach or change coaches? And I think that's a good question, because I also have been like assumed my coach knew everything and, was super tailoring. Like if they said I could hit X pace, they must know something I don't. And then it turns out, there is no magic. And yeah.
But belief is magic. And if you
Belief
stop
is magic.
believing in your coach, that's probably one of the first indications that maybe you need to think of something different, because if you're questioning everything your coach says, I think that's one of the biggest things. There's so many different ways to be successful, but when you don't have a buy-in in the person who is helping you on your journey, and that could be both sides, right? Like that could be maybe that coach isn't the right coach for you. That could also be something I would reflect on as an athlete, especially if you find yourself bouncing from coach to coach to coach to coach to coach. It's like let's start looking inward then, because surely there's something that you need to reflect on as well there.
Yeah, coaching is definitely a relationship, right? And so it is like, are you the right fit? Is that coach the right person for you? And Katie, you mentioned too, like trust is a huge thing. I think if you stop trusting your coach, then you might want to reflect on why and what has happened. But that's something that just shows the relationship is a little bit fragile at that point. But I think the big thing when I talk to athletes who've come to me from other coaches, it's mostly because their expectations aren't being met, whether that's from a communication standpoint or feedback or, whatever your expectations are about what you're going to get out of that coaching relationship. If you're not getting what you're looking for and what you want to get out of the relationship, then there's probably another coach out there who can provide that.
And I think too, it's like an interview, like think of it as an interview process. Whereas often people will just Google or like think, oh, here's the coach. They've heard a lot from their community. This person's a great coach. But again, that doesn't mean they're the right coach for you. And so reaching out to multiple coaches, having conversations, having consultations, doing even trial like phases with them, talking to some of the athletes they coach. Like it sounds really involved, but you want to be with the person who you mesh well with, both in the way they are giving you training, but also just the way they're communicating. And exactly like Allison was saying, how much communication? Yes. Kelly,
Follow-up
finger grade.
question. What do you ask? Because I remember interviewing coaches. What questions should you ask a coach when you're trying to decide?
So, I can tell you more kind of what I want to communicate to my athletes, and it's probably hopefully what they want to know also. So part of what I tell them is my coaching style, but I guess even backing up from that, in theory, I as a coach should be able to coach every athlete, every distance race from front of the pack to the back of the pack. In reality, I'm a much better fit for certain types of athletes than I am for other types of athletes. I am not great at coaching. I'm not a good fit for athletes who are looking to hit the podium. It's just like, I don't sync with athletes as well with that mindset. It's not where I was racing. So it's just kind of not where I naturally connect with people. And I tend to do better with long course races because I had more experience there. So every coach is going to have the type of athlete that, or kind of not category, but athlete profile that they work best with. I tend to coach more women and more women my age, although I do also work with people in their 20s and 30s also. So understanding what that coach's kind of ideal athlete or general athlete profile is good. And then beyond that, coaching style, right? Some coaches are going to be drill masters. Some coaches are going to be very data focused. Some coaches are really big on communication, but also method of communication. I like talking with my athletes. I talk to them on the phone. I have Zoom sessions with them. There are other coaches who mostly communicate with their athletes over text. There's no right or wrong. They're just different communication styles.
At Alison, that made me laugh. I was like, nope, we would be terrible. I don't like talking on the phone.
Yeah.
Don't call me.
You know what's funny? I don't like talking on the phone at all, but I like talking to my athletes because I get a better understanding of what's going on if I have those live conversations than I would over text. I might actually hate text, or I hate texts that show up randomly, maybe is my problem. But the other thing though is that I like my communication with my athletes is a lot about training, but there's some life coaching in there also in terms of like how you're juggling and also just how you're responding to your successes and challenges in your training. So that's, I think, why I like having those larger conversations. If you want someone who's just like, stick to the point, this is what's going on, then texting works better. And you may not want those larger conversations. So those are kind of some of the things that that I communicate, kind of how my communication style, my kind of my coaching priorities and my coaching style in terms of like, I'm a big cheerleader. I don't like to yell at my athletes. Not everyone. I mean, some people might want to be yelled at, but that's just not. I don't know. Katie, what do you like to talk to your athletes about?
So I was thinking it more in ways of like, if I'm looking for a coach, I would want the athletes to say what their expectations are of like what they're looking for, just in terms of like whether they want to have a community or not, and what exactly like you said, communication style, but also like who they are as athletes in terms of their like hear from them like, okay, what are your weaknesses, what are your strengths, and kind of playing off of that of like, if an athlete is telling me what they're looking for and with me coaching, I'd be like, oh, okay, like this is kind of how we typically do it, and like staying true to my coaching styles and philosophy, and them needing to make the decision of like, okay, well, is this what I'm looking for? But I feel like when the athlete can set the expectations of what they're looking for, then it's like on me to say like, oh, whether this is whether you would receive it in that way. And I mean, I am not I do not like remote coaching at all. It's not, I like being in person. I like seeing the athletes. And so like in general, it's like, if someone's looking for a remote coach, I'm like, oh, but like, maybe I can connect you with someone else here because like, I know I just don't have the bandwidth for it at this point.
Sure.
But that's how I would go into it, almost like you're both interviewing each other when you're looking for a coach. Is like the athlete is looking for something in particular, and the coach is also looking for things in an athlete that they're going to coach, and seeing whether that kind of works out to be like, oh, this is a good fit. Or, I mean, as an athlete, I know not every coach is going to be the right fit for every single athlete. So I feel like as coaches, we can say like, oh, like, I don't think I'm the right fit, but like here, this is this other person. Like, I think they might be a better fit for you, or let me connect you with some other people who you can check out and talk to. And I think that will build our community up if we can kind of work in that way. Because we do all have like specializations, even though we probably can do
Did
more.
you know there was we're going to move on from coaching in a second, but there was a male coach once who told me that he wasn't taking athletes on and there was no one good enough that he could recommend to me. And I was like, okay, well, awesome.
And that is the end of that relationship.
All right, we are going to get into some more specifics. You mentioned data, and obviously like people are very focused on numbers. I mean, we're triathletes, but also on their watches and like hours, volume, TSS scores, HRV scores, readiness scores. what data and numbers do you actually like pay attention to from your athletes, and what should the athletes be focused on?
I feel like this might be a different answer from whether you're coaching remote or whether you're in
Mm.
person, especially for like your athletes in particular, because I probably tend away from data in general in terms of like the HRV, the sleep, the readiness, just because I think it can get into not just athletes, but in general into people's heads in terms of like, there's some nights, especially I think I've spoken on this about like being a new mom where like, if I looked at like any of that, it would tell me I was going to basically be like on a couch the entire day and should not go out and do anything. And even as an elite athlete, I found that it's like, what is your recovery time? Like 96 hours. It's like, okay, I'm going to go out and do like training tomorrow, and it's going to probably be pretty hard. And so I think if you're finding it to be like a negative all the time, like that you're looking at it, it's getting too much in your head, then it's probably time to just take a break from it. However, I also think if you aren't like reading into it too much and you're more using it to reflect on and not to like just choose what you're going to do that day, then that can be a useful tool. So it really depends on like what your relationship you can have with the data, of whether you can have it or whether it's like something you should just moderate in some ways.
And Alison, as a remote coach, though, with everyone uploading, because I assume you use Training Peaks or Final Surge or something, with everyone uploading all their files, what do you really look at in those files?
So I also, by the way, don't really like to follow HRV or resting heart rate. It's not that it's not informative, but I do find athletes tend to view it as prescriptive. And I don't like that. I've had to tell athletes to take off Whoop straps. They'll be like, I didn't do my workout because my Whoop score was whatever. I'm like, absolutely not. Get on your bike. So, yeah, I think that, the thing to remember too is that a lot of these devices are feeding things like your actual HRV data and your resting heart rate into an algorithm to determine your readiness. And that algorithm doesn't know you, right? And it doesn't actually know how your workout's going to go. It just thinks it does. So I really don't like that. What I do look at, I definitely look at a lot of the detail within the workout itself. I don't tend to look at the absolute like TSS score. I have a whole rant on TSS that we don't need to go into. But TSS is an imperfect number, but it's consistently imperfect. So I like to look at the trends of where kind of the CTL is going, and that can be informative. It's nice to just reaffirm to athletes, like, that you're writing training and it's developing fitness, but if they're not feeling like it is, then you kind of be like, oh no, look, the data. And I like to look at how
you're like, the chart's going up. See, it's good.
I like to look at how different metrics are playing with each other. So like how are power and heart rate playing today relative to how they were playing 4 weeks ago? Are they, still kind of in line in terms of your, everything's still in zone 2, or has, power's in zone 2 and your heart rate's now in zone 1? That's a like really fun thing to see. And similarly with pace. So I like to dive into those kind of details. But the data only tells you one piece of the puzzle. And so it's nice, but you need those workout comments, which is not what the question was, but you need the picture.
I did have a friend once, so I connected him with a coach, and then a couple months later, I was like, how is it going? And he was like, I don't know, I never really get any feedback. And I was like, well, what are you telling him? He was like, oh, I don't write anything. I was like, well, there you go.
Like everything's great. I mean, we even try a lot of our athletes, well, all of our athletes use Training Peaks. And like, I love the comments coming through. And if somebody's not a huge commenter, I'm like, just do the faces of like the RPE and like how happy or sad you are. Because like, if there's like a crying, like worst off face, like that is eye catching of like, oh, this is a different day. And also similarly, if you're putting like had a really great workout where you felt super strong, it's you put it in, like we see it as coaches, but also it kind of like resonates with the athletes. They're like, oh, that's a good day. That's easy to like see and like track, like, oh, look at all these, like, look at
all the happy faces.
Yeah. And it doesn't have to be the happiest of faces. It can be the like middle ground,
Do you guys use test sets or kind of markers with your athletes? And what sort of ones should somebody who's, training themselves do or use regularly?
I'm guessing that Katie and I are going to have very different responses to this.
I'm looking. You go first then.
Okay. So for my age group athletes, we don't do a lot of test sets. For a lot of age group athletes, aside from the fact that they're very hard and stressful on the body, right? But also they don't always do a great job of adequately reflecting an athlete's fitness. A lot of age group athletes, understandably, are not, feel pressure in those environments, and they just may not test well. So half the time, when I would have an athlete do an FTP test or a run benchmark test or whatever, half the time I'd be like, yeah, I don't know. I think you actually, you probably can do better than this. If I don't have any zones, and especially heart rate zones on an athlete, I might do that. But what I look for, kind of going back to the, if we had set your zones based on something appropriate and power and heart rate were aligned in zone 2, and then over time heart rate's dropping, I'm like, oh, your FTP's gone up. And I just kind of shift the FTP and get them back in line. And then for what I do, we're close enough at that point.
Should I have changed my FTP in Training Peaks since I am very, very out of shape? Because I've just left it as it was.
So you should have. That would be a yes. Yeah.
Yeah. And for us, we don't do much testing with our athletes, but we do a lot of repeating of similar sessions. And that's kind of our feedback mechanism of okay, are we consistent? Is it getting similar to Alison? Is the session getting easier? How are your metrics playing in terms of pace and heart rate and power? And even just RPE, the aspect of honestly, that's the biggest feedback mechanism that we have is just that RPE, and then also just seeing how they recover after sessions. And then racing is kind of the test set, using the races, we used a 5K time trial in the very beginning of the season, just because similar to Alison, for a lot of our athletes, they hadn't done kind of just a run race. So we were okay, let's get a baseline here, to work those zones off of. But it's pretty interesting because I would say I'm not as data driven, but our assistant coach Aubrey Aldi is. And when we're looking at numbers, he's pulling the data, I'm looking at the just workouts, and we get really similar numbers doing that. And I think it's validating because it's saying the data saying the same things that what we're seeing in your sessions.
And we had this comment from somebody. It says, I'm going into my key intensity sessions with anxiety and a sense of dread that I'll fail, to your point, Alison. Talk me through how to a mindset shift. And then if I do, in quotes, fail a session, what should I do?
So for starters, I don't think that failing a session is a thing. I've never looked at anyone's Training Peaks calendar and been like, oh, they failed the session. The only thing that might fall into that category would be if someone put a comment in hey, instead of doing my workout today, I binged Netflix. That might be a fail. But other than that, you show up at every workout with a whole big context, right? You've got your fitness that you've been building, but you have the fatigue that's been also accumulating from the training. You've got life stress and work stress and relationship stress, and maybe you slept well and maybe you didn't. Maybe you're fighting off a cold. There's 90 things that contribute to how that workout goes. And the workout's going to reflect some combination of those things in different emphases. So when you have a workout that doesn't go the way you think it should, it's because your fatigue or something else is just showing up more than your fitness is. It doesn't mean the fitness isn't there. It's just being hidden by the other things. So, the goal is you show up and you do the best you can in the context of what you're bringing to that workout.
Okay, follow-up question then. If you cannot hit the paces or the times or the whatever, when should you cut the cord? Because sometimes you're nope, cutting the cord, going to do this again later. And when should you just power through and try as hard as you can?
Excellent question. So I'm totally fine with an athlete who's hey, I did the effort levels, but I didn't hit the numbers. Totally fine. I'm also fine with, I just dragged my ass through the workout and it was a train wreck, but I got it done. The interesting thing about, especially for those long runs and long bike rides, when you're getting into the peak training weeks, one of them is going to be horrible. And I kind of don't mind it when it happens. Not that I want my athlete to go through that because it's not fun, but that on race day, there are going to be miles that are horrendous and you're going to feel miserable and you're going to have to get through them. And so when you have that bad training day, it's actually this opportunity to be well, now what do I do? Do I go to 7-Eleven and slam a Coca-Cola? Do I just bring my effort level down? Do I run through the 45 different mental tricks that I have in my back pocket to find a way to stay present in the workout and just get this done, you're going to need to do something on race day. And if you've never practiced it in training or never had the opportunity to practice it in training, then you're not kind of as well prepared on race day as you could be.
Sure.
And I do
Yeah, no, I
feel
definitely, I
like-
was like, I was thinking about the, sorry, Katie, I'm going to ask you your version, but I was thinking about this, and there are those ones you have to power through. But Katie, when do you, when you're just like not hitting the times, when do you just say, cut the cord, it's not happening today?
I feel like there's like a productive fatigue when you're like doing the session. It feels terrible, but you might be off the paces, but it's not ginormously different than what you should be doing. When you're doing the session and you're like 100 watts lower than you should be, or it's just so far off like the target, I always give like one more, like, okay, let's reset, let's make it a shorter interval, let's see if you can hit this same pace, and then let's see how that goes. And then after that, if it's still just like, no, we took a break, we tried to re-engage, not just for the physical side of things, but honestly, like to test of like the mental side of like, is this mental, is this physical? And then I'm like, nope, we're good for today. And there's like a huge sliding scale to that in terms of when you're in person with your athletes, you're able to kind of modify things in a different way. When you're remote, I think that's actually one of the hardest things about being remote and being an athlete without your coach there. Is like you need to start getting more confident in making those decisions for yourself. Like, ugh. And I always come back to the like asking myself, is this workout going to make me better today? And like, if I say yes, then that means there's something in me, I can do something. And like, if it's like a no, it's just going to hurt me. It's going to put me in a hole. It's going to injure me. Then that's like definitely a reason to stop. But it does take like self-awareness. And I think that's a learning curve for athletes in general. And I think you have both sides of athletes where like some are going to hit like a little bit of resistance in their training and they're gonna be like, I'm done. Like, that's it. Like, I haven't hit my time or I haven't hit the pace. And like, you probably could have, and it might be more mental. And then you'll have the other ones who will literally be like, they should have stopped like 4 reps ago, but they're still like slogging around the track or doing whatever. So it definitely takes, I think, that's one of those things. If you're not in person, you're like looking at the data as the coach, you're talking to the athlete and you're kind of like, okay, like next time, like maybe we try something different. Or if you're in the same situation, but that's not always, that's something you need to learn to do. It's not always something you're going to get right away.
Totally.
And we had, so that covering us too, before we take another short break, we had a whole bunch of questions about how often should I be moving workouts? Like, is it okay to move workouts? How often is too often? If I have to move things because life stress, all the stuff you mentioned, what should I prioritize? Like, how do I know when it's okay to shift and when it's not?
Yeah. Do you want to
We
start?
had a lot of questions about this. So
yeah. So, because you have in-person people, are you constantly kind of juggling on the fly, or is everyone very dedicated to, or they kind of have the time available to dedicate to getting done on that day what they're supposed to do on that day?
Mostly that time is available, but we try to be as like preemptive as we can with it in terms of like our athletes just have a lot of them are working on the side, some of them are going to school. So like prior to the week when I'm putting up training, I'm putting out a note that says, please put everything that you know that you have outside of training in your training peak so I can like kind of work around it. But then in the moment or like during the week, it's still like dialing it in. And again, this is a benefit to just having a coach, maybe not even an like in-person coach, but being able to like say, hey, like, this came up, like, can I just move it at over a day? And I'll be like, okay, give me a second. I like pull up their training peaks and like see how it would impact the whole picture. And some days it's like, yeah, like, okay, whatever, just move it or don't do it. Or, I would say never make up training. That's pretty much a principle for me is like, if you miss something, it's not like, oh, we're just going to tack it on like the next day or add on, like make your run like double. Like it doesn't work like that. If the main goal is to be consistent. So like be consistent week after week after week after week after week. If you miss like one training session, that's not going to That's not going to hurt you. And I mean, I said one. You can miss more than one, but like
Sure.
depends what kind of depends what your goals are.
Totally.
You've heard the joke, Katie. I just try to run 30 minutes every day, and if I miss one, I have to run double the next day. It's going great. Tomorrow I have to run 96 hours. Yeah.
That's what I'm on. That's the track I'm on then. Got a long run coming up.
It is trickier because I'm not there daily with my athletes to kind of help them navigate that. Obviously, they can text me and we can kind of troubleshoot it. But I have some athletes also that I work with at kind of a more of a hands-off level. And so I don't talk to them as frequently. And so, I kind of touch base with them once a month. And it's like, oh, okay, that's interesting how you handled that. So, the thing to remember is that when you have training on a Training Peaks calendar or Final Surge or the training plan that you bought from somewhere, there's a rhyme and a reason for how the week is structured. And so moving something is always going to have implications, but it's a question of how big the implications are. And so, if you have to really look at kind of where are your interval sessions, and how do those interval sessions relate to your long sessions on the weekend. So if you put 2 interval sessions on Friday and then you think you're going to bike long on Saturday, that's not a great plan. If you're skipping stuff, sometimes you're going to have to miss workouts. That's what life is. So you want to not always miss the same kind of workouts. You don't always want to just skip your swims because then you're basically never swimming. And I agree. Like I definitely did have an athlete who somehow put 2 runs on one day. And I was like, that's definitely not how that works. So you can't do that. I definitely say like sometimes you can shift in the week, but you can't shift workouts from this week to next week, right? Like at the point that it's not done by Sunday, it's definitely not getting done. So there are a lot of kind of rules that you can use about, well, don't add a run onto your long bike day, right? Especially if you're already doing a brick, or don't add, it's hard to add stuff onto your long bike day. Like maybe you could do a swim, but it's not going to be very high quality. So there's just some different things and guidelines that you can use. But the big thing to also keep in mind is that if you find that you are moving stuff around every single week, especially with athletes that I coach where I'm talking to them weekly, if that's what's happening every single week, then I'm like, hey, maybe the way I'm putting stuff on your calendar is not the best way to be putting stuff on your calendar. Like you keep moving stuff around. You never do workouts on Wednesday. Why don't we Wednesday your off day? I get that it's non-traditional, but you can't do workouts on Wednesdays. So let's stop pretending that works and actually set up a schedule in a way that works for you, even if it's not the traditional weekly schedule.
Yeah, I think that's part is huge. Just using that as a feedback mechanism and seeing like, okay, if this isn't working, then like, let's try and get ahead of it as best we can. Of course, like things might come up and that happens with life. But like, if it's a consistent thing, if you're just missing like 50% of your sessions a week, then that's something to kind of dial in and talk to your coach about, or like or if you're self-coaching, then how are you going to stack things so that you get them done in a way that is good for you? And by stack, I just mean like, do you need to like wake up earlier in the morning, get your session done so you get it finished in the morning so you don't skip it? Or do you need to meet up with a friend so that that session gets done? You don't like, there's ways to kind of make it happen.
Totally.
If you're finding yourself missing out on sessions just because like life is getting in the way, or motivation, or whatever it is.
I do think too, I think when people find a routine that works for them and a weekly pattern and they have done it for 3 or 4 weeks, it starts to become very habitual. And once something's a habit, then you don't tend to miss as many workouts. It's hard if you have a life, like I coach a lot of athletes who travel a bunch or who work non-traditional schedules. And so when your life isn't consistent, it's hard to have a consistent workout routine.
Yeah, I was just listening to you and I was being like, oh, that must be nice. Yeah.
As a tip, I will say this is not for everybody, but if you can make it happen, I'm a huge fan of like the destination, like runs or rides. If you're doing something with with your family, or going with even just a person who could like take you somewhere, like you're going somewhere and you just get back via your bike, your run, like thinking more for the easy stuff. But I mean, you could do a run session even on the way home from somewhere.
Yeah.
Like
From somewhere.
I've done that with coaching, where I've coached and then Tommy has been there and he drove the car back and I just ran home. Like, so.
There you go. I also say, and this is totally random, because I don't really skip workouts, but I have a tendency to trim, like aggressive. Like I'll be like, well, I did the main thing, and then I'll just like trim and trim and trim. So I make up my own rules for myself. And one of my rules when I was serious was you couldn't cut more than 5% of the workout. And I literally would be out there being like, 5% is 6 minutes. Okay, I can cut 5 minutes off this bike. Like, so sometimes making up rules. I also made up rules, whatever. You make up rules for yourself, right? Like,
Totally.
I can't have a beer until after I'm done with all my workouts. Like these are my, that's a good
more
rule.
in trimming than skipping sessions. I don't know how you feel, Allison, about it, but like if you don't have time for the 2-hour ride that was prescribed and you're like, I can only get in 90 minutes, as long as you get in like a proper warm up and like a cool down,
Yeah.
go for it.
I know that's the general rule. I was trimming so aggressively that it like hurt me. Okay. Like it was not.
Okay. Yeah. Katie, in terms of what you said, something is always better than nothing. I would rather you showed up and did something than skipped it altogether. But the other thing, so I love that you gave yourself a 5% thing. My beat, like, so Training Peaks, I don't know, Kate, if you have athletes who are very big on the Training Peaks, I call it a sticker chart for grownups, but the way the colors,
the green.
So, but the thing with green is it's plus or minus 20%. And 20% is a pretty damn big range. I'd much rather it was 10% because when you have an athlete who really only cares about turning the workout green, 20% is a significant drop from whatever was planned.
Sure.
I would like 10%.
I mean, 5% was that was just because that was a problem for me. My point was that like if Wednesdays are a problem, you could just make up your own made up rules and then you're like, I have to follow this. So there you go.
Well,
sorry.
I was going to say rewards are good too. Like it's like, oh, if I do this, then I get to like watch my trash TV on the couch tonight or whatever. But those reward systems are really, really good.
Yeah. And it all depends on your goals too. Like in terms of if you're missing a lot of training, then maybe you're doing too many hours of training and it's not actually realistic for you right now. And that doesn't mean that it's not going to be realistic for you ever, but there's different phases of life where you'll have more time and less time. And so like, that's something if you have a coach or even if you don't have a coach, like, but you want to plan it yourself, like take that into consideration. And maybe you have like a block of training during whatever time of your life you're like, oh, I have a little bit more time now. And then during the crazy time, it's like, that's a recovery week. Like work around your schedule because there's a lot of different ways to be successful.
Yeah, I totally agree with that.
We're going to take a quick break and then we're going to dive into some nutrition specifics.
Meet your new Race Day Advantage, Orca's Athlex Aero Tri-Suit. This isn't your everyday tri-suit. It's built for speed where it matters most. With aerodynamic fabric strategically placed across the shoulders, arms, and back, it's designed to be aerodynamic on the bike while still giving you full freedom of movement in the water. And when the race heats up, Orca's VaporCool technology kicks in, actively helping your body regulate temperature by accelerating sweat evaporation. You also get a lightweight, quick-drying Tri-Tech chamois for comfort on the bike without feeling bulky on the run, and 2 back pockets to stash your nutrition for those longer efforts. The fit is compressive, race-ready, and built for performance. Plus, it comes in a very feisty blue color, which we love. Whether you're chasing a PR or just want to feel fast, the Athlex Aero Tri-Suit is designed to help you perform at your best across swim, bike, and run. Check it out now at the link in our show notes and use the code FeistyTry15 for 15% off all Orca products. That's FeistyTry15 for 15% off and use the link in our show notes.
Let's face it, as much as most of us love being outdoors, sometimes the outdoors doesn't love us. Like when it's 10 degrees below or pouring rain, or sometimes you've got a workout on tap that's just hard to do outdoors. Well, great news. We have partnered with Wahoo to offer you a special deal on the Wahoo Kicker Run, a revolutionary rethink of the traditional treadmill that will convert even the most diehard treadmill haters. I know because I was one. The Kicker Run is engineered to bring outdoor running straight into your home. With a push of a button, you can set up this machine to match your pace automatically, so you can just run, and it automatically adjusts with you instead of the other way around. By far, my favorite feature. It also has terrain simulation, so the deck feels like I'm on hard-packed trails with just enough give but no bounce. There's even a lateral tilt feature which mimics real-world terrain, varying the side-to-side angle to keep your muscles ready for outdoor running. Finally, the Kicker Run has unmatched connectivity. It seamlessly connects to the Wahoo ecosystem and third-party apps, so you can simulate routes from Strava or Zwift. Whether you're a triathlete, a devoted runner, or someone who just loves to stay fit, the Kicker Run is there for you, and honestly, it's just a beautiful machine. We love it, we know you will too, so check this thing out. Click the link in the show notes and use the code Feisty2026, all caps Feisty2026, to get a free Headwind Smart Fan valued at $300 with the purchase of a Wahoo Kicker Run today. I will drop a link in the show notes to make it a snap.
All right. We also got a lot of questions about high carb fueling because it's kind of constantly in the news. We're hearing 100 grams an hour, 150 grams an hour. And I think there's a lot of confusion. So we got, explain this high carb thing to me. What's a good starting point? Like, where should I be starting at carbs per hour? And then what kind of guidelines do you give your athletes in terms of fueling for like an Olympic or a half or a full?
So it's an interesting topic and one that I'm kind of increasingly curious about the latest trends. So if you look at where we were talking about and kind of what we were looking at 3 years ago, it was all based on these research studies that capped our glucose intake at 60 grams an hour and then said if you add fructose, you can get up to 90 grams an hour of carbs in terms of absorption. So obviously now people are consuming more than 90 grams an hour, but the science hasn't actually caught up to that to show that it works, which other than Christian Blumenfeld that maybe 2 years ago at Kona, mostly people are keeping the food in, keeping the carbs in. But it is an interesting question. So I haven't gotten to the point where I'm telling my athletes to throw down a gel every 15 minutes. But my guidelines for my athletes are if it's under 2.5 hours, then you're or between an hour and 2.5 hours, you're at 30 to 60 grams of carbs an hour. Under an hour, if your daily nutrition's good and you're not doing the workout fasted, you don't necessarily need to fuel it. So hour to 2.5 hours, you're at 30 to 60 grams an hour of carbs. And then above that, 60 to 90. So for my long course athletes, I'm hoping to get them in that kind of 70 to 80 gram range. Kitty, I can't tell if you're like smiling and laughing behind your hand.
No, I was nodding and taking it
Okay,
in.
good.
Unless, I mean, honestly, like we do a little less specific, so I'm glad you're
responding. But the thing too is that even if, there's kind of two sides to that though. If you're just starting out, even if you're going out for a 4-hour ride, if you're like, I'm throwing down 75 grams an hour of carbs, your gut is probably not ready for that. So you have to train your gut to absorb the carbohydrates while you're exercising, especially because your body's basically kind of allocating resources, right? So your body's like, okay, we're biking or we're running, so we have to send a whole bunch of resources to muscles. Organs are still generally a high priority, so let's make sure they function. Brain, mostly yes. Like higher math, no, which is why no one can do math on a run course. And so then you're like, by the way, also now we need to digest carbs. And your body's like, oh crap, we have to send some resources to your GI tract. So you need to teach your body that it can do that. So you can, so you have to start lower, like 30 grams an hour, and then build up from there. And then the flip side is that, like, once you do have an acclimated gut, if you're training for a long course race, even if you're only doing a 2-hour or 3-hour bike, you might want to go with those higher carb numbers just to get your body used to it and to get you used to what your fueling plan is going to be. I should also, and then let me clarify, obviously nutrition's a big topic and I go deep into this with a lot of people. That the numbers I threw out were for the bike. It's easier to digest carbs on the bike. So when we switch to the run, we bring those down a notch. So it's more like 30 to 50 grams an hour for an hour to 2.5. And then above 2.5, 50 to 70 grams an hour.
And for people, a general rule, like obviously everyone started talking in grams in the last like 5 years.
Yes.
But before that, we talked calories. And for people, a general rule is like a gram's about 4 calories, right? So like 100 grams an hour is about 400 calories an hour.
1 gram of carbohydrates. I don't think it translates the same way for other macros, but a gram of carbs is 4 calories. And then it's also really important to know that your body cannot absorb carbohydrates without fluid and electrolytes, which is specifically sodium. So if you're, especially like you go out for a 2-hour run, you're not bringing any fluid, not bringing any water, and you're trying to throw down some goos, you're going to have a really hard time. So you do need to actually hydrate in order for your body to be able to absorb those carbs.
Which I guess kind of leads into like another question we had, which is that, I always have GI problems in longer races. Yeah. How do I get and keep nutrition down?
So everyone's different. Everyone's GI tract is different and everyone's ability to tolerate fueling is different. So are you saying like you literally cannot keep it down and it's coming back
I'm
up?
reading the question.
It wasn't.
Yeah.
I thought
right.
you made it sound
Well,
like it
I
was.
also have had that happen, but
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah. That is a lot of that's kind of playing with products and
Mm.
also again, kind of making sure that you do have the fluids and electrolytes correct so that if you don't have that right, then you put carbs in your stomach and they basically just sit there and eventually they might come back up. So looking at your fluid and electrolyte intake to make sure that your body's ready to absorb the carbohydrates, looking at what you're putting in terms of that combination of glucose and fructose to make sure that you have a good combination. And then there's stuff like maltodextrin, which I think is a combination of the two. You have to get really smart about reading nutrition labels. But then different products are going to sit differently. So you might find that you can't stomach goos, but the SIS beta fuel is something that you can handle. So part of it's playing with that. I don't know, Katie, do you have experience with people who have challenges like that?
Well, and I think too, like we focus so much on the nutrition, like within the actual race and training session, but there's also a huge factor of just what you're having leading into your training and races. But like just thinking about like your normal food that you're eating in a day. And like, especially when it comes to races, I mean, like just the nutritionist who I've worked with has often advised like really going bland, like 3 days out from a race, if not more, where it looks so unhealthy. Like you're just not eating like green and like colorful things. You're more like more bland and some protein. And I know
call that the all beige diet.
yeah. And I think that's a really big part of it is like just what you're eating, not just, I mean, you hear about like carbo loading the day before the race, but it's actually like a couple days or like 3 days out from the race where you want to start like getting your body ready to just be able to like digest things easier and feel good.
Totally.
And also even though like the science says one thing, if something is not working for you, you do not have to stick with the science in terms of like if you're like, oh, I'm just supposed to eat a lot, but that actually might not feel good for your stomach and you might actually perform better with a little bit less or a little bit more. Like I know like when I was racing competitively, I would have for a sprint, I would have one gel and I would have like a bottle of water and sometimes like a sports drinks mixed into it. Whereas like another competitor, she'd have like 2 gels at least on her bike for the same distance and maybe 2 bottles. And like we're all different. So even though there's like science telling us what the optimal thing is, it's not always optimal for you and you have to play with it and find out sometimes in really like exciting ways if you're like I feel great this is something I'll do really often or okay like this doesn't work for me even if like everybody tells me it should.
I don't know. I mean, maybe some people, I'm always like, man, I don't want to have to think about this also on top of biking and swimming and running.
But you might, I don't know. I think there's some athletes who really don't have to think about it as much as other athletes do. Like if you're having trouble, then yeah, I think like you should reflect on it and see how you can optimize it. But also if you feel good and you're like eating like maybe even real food before you like start. I mean, Miranda Carfrae always ate like a chocolate muffin before her Ironman because that was what she could stomach. That's what she could get down. And granted, like you could argue like, okay, Katie, like it's been way more optimized since Miranda Carfrae like was racing, but there is still an element of like candy can have a similar
Sure.
some candies can have a similar like give you that glycogen, like give you that sugar feeling and like make you feel good too.
Yeah.
We also had a question. Oh, sorry. I was going to ask, since you were talking about nutrition before and outside of the rest, we also had a question that was, if you're consistently having to train after work, which is like through dinner and, you're going, how do you manage nutrition properly? Because obviously we've all had those workouts kind of after work where we're trying to balance the eating and the GI and.
It's so bland. That's what I would say. Like whatever you're eating is very bland. Like, probably like for dinner. I don't know if Alison, if you probably have more intuitive.
I can't even get my head around the idea of eating a full dinner and then working out. That just makes me nauseous. So I would suggest, and there's pros and cons probably to any strategy, but you might want to consider, like, especially if you know you're doing your workout at 6:00, so you have lunch, and then maybe at 4:00 you have a reasonably decent sized snack that's carbohydrate heavy, and then you do your workout, and then you have dinner after. And granted, that might mean you're eating at 8:00, which is probably not optimal for sleeping, but again, there's just trade-offs, and you're looking for kind of the most palatable version of the way to navigate that.
The Spanish version of life right there.
Yes.
Right. Or you just tell yourself, it's fine. It's Ironman training. Just eat and run. Yeah.
It might also get better because the more you do it, you're going to get more used to it. But it doesn't. I think
it's not pleasant. No,
I think you do have to change it a little bit. But Tommy, anyways, Tommy slams like quesadillas and cereal before he goes and does his training. So
atypical.
Yeah, although he did throw up on his ride yesterday in the first leg. Well, you did just eat cereal and milk right before you went out for our hard rides. In the heat.
In the heat. We had a few questions about training, like kind of just general tips or advice for training through pregnancy. This person's starting to notice a lot of pelvic pain, kind of they're pregnant. They specifically wanted to know what your experience was, Katie, kind of biking and running through pregnancy, but also like how do you adapt it? How long can you keep biking and running? And like any recommendations about strength training?
So like from my experience and kind of what I've been advised was like, you can keep doing whatever you normally do until like you feel like there's a reason not to. In the sense of like, if you start feeling any pain or uncomfortable, and obviously talk to like your doctors about this, but in general, I just started adapting to my training when I was pregnant, either because of motivation, where I became unmotivated and did not feel like getting out, but also like when I would like just really be open to the day-to-day changes of how I was feeling with running. Like some days, and it wasn't even like linear through my pregnancy, but some days I would be like, oh, like, okay, yeah, I can go run like 60 minutes and not stop. And then other days I'd do like a lot of walk breaks. And then other days I'd go for a run and then just end up walking the entire time. And so I think just being really flexible with your expectations, especially as like your pregnancy progresses, and just talk to professionals and do what feels comfortable for you. Like if you're second guessing what you're doing, then maybe you just have to decide like what that trade-off.
I will say for regular non-Olympian athletes, talking to your doctor can be tough. I totally understand that because they are like, just do yoga. Which I got that advice. So, I think when someone's looking for more guidance, there are some actual like FIFA guidelines out there. There are some IOC guidelines out there. So you can, high intensity exercise is pretty confirmed to be like, okay, long training. Like it's again, what you were doing, like don't start training for an Ironman is kind of but whatever you were doing, you can continue. Running and biking, specific recommendations. Some people do like the little band. Thing that holds things in place. I didn't love it. I liked running uphill. Like that seemed to help versus running flat. And then I know how long people continue biking has kind of depended again on like their comfort level and concern about crashing. Some people bike the whole time because they're professional cyclists and they're fine. Riding a mountain bike on the road is, I think, a common accommodation that a lot of people make so they can sit more upright. And then, Alison, do you have any like strength training is a big one we're hearing more and more about in pregnancy. Any like specific recommendations for strength training?
And I just recommend you do it.
You do strength training? Good. Yeah.
So I'm not an expert training through pregnancy. I had my kids a very long time ago. And so I got a positive pregnancy test and then basically lay on the couch for 8 months. So I do think it's helpful to have people you can talk to who do have more expertise than me, or than possibly your current OBGYN. I think that I've coached a couple athletes during pregnancy, and the biggest thing was that some of the OBs are up to speed on what's okay to do, and some of them are still thinking like my OB was 25 years ago.
Yes.
Yeah. So finding an OB who will support the idea that you want to maintain your level of activity. And I agree, like, don't start something new, but if you've been doing stuff, go ahead and keep doing it. You definitely want to make sure your OB's on board. And if they're not, then find a new one.
Yeah, and just going back to this specific question, she was noticing a bit of pelvic pain after the long rides and the bike. So I think that's just something to find a doctor who you trust and feel like, again, like Allison said, that they're on board with like what your history is as an athlete and what your goals are through this pregnancy, and kind of talk to them about it, because there's some, like, obviously with pregnancy, there's a lot of weird things going on with your body. and and it depends how you are as a person. Like, I'm more of a nervous person, so I like just being like reassured, or like, even, I mean, I would ask like other friends of mine, oh, like, did you feel that? And like sometimes it was like, oh yeah, okay, all right. Like their just experience kind of helped me as well. So maybe leaning into that community if you have it.
And they were also asking us about any kind of specific strength training plan. And I know, just because I know who sent this, that is frustrating. Like, I was also trying to find like a specific strength training plan that wasn't yoga, and they aren't really, there aren't a ton out there, because they do tend to be very, very simple. Like, lay on the floor and do breathing exercises, which is useful and helpful, and you should do those. But then, like, in terms of, they are not necessarily out there at the level that maybe you want to continue strength training. I would say going to a pelvic floor PT, particularly one who has experience with sports, because then they can kind of tell you the things to pay attention for if you want to continue lifting, if you want to continue, like how, because there are ways that you could, I'm trying to not be engaging your core well or correctly while you're doing deadlifts and squats and whatever, that might cause you problems. But if you kind of like get some guidance.
And then also, don't your ligaments get stretchier, right?
Yeah.
And so that's another thing that you want to kind of think about. That's where I feel like, I don't know. And this is where maybe I'm stuck in the old school thinking, but I feel like squats could just pose complications with just like
pop out. No, I'm kidding.
No, not like that, but just in terms of like the pelvic structure stretching more than you want it to. But I would think that, like, I mean, using any of the machines, I would think would be really safe, right? Like sitting there and just doing leg extensions and leg curls, that should be completely fine. Most of the like lat pull down machines, the rowing machine, like the seated row machine seems like would all be fine, although the row would be a little challenging. Or at least the one that we have at our gym. So, but I think also listening to your body is probably the biggest thing. And again, kind of sticking with, if this is the strength training routine that you've been doing, then your body already knows how to do that, and it knows how to be structurally sound when you're doing those exercises. And so that's a great place to start.
And the only thing I'll say with that is that when I was doing strength and I had a PT helping me who is like very like into helping with like pregnancy and strength training through pregnancy, is that just making sure that there's no like fall risk to things. So like if you're doing different, like I would do like step ups on the boxes, or just like being close to a wall or something. Just that was the one thing that I think we paid a little bit more attention to, just like the balance. And I was very pregnant at the time.
I was like laughing in my head. I'm like, did you regularly fall at the gym, Katie? Was this like a issue?
No, I did not. But at the like I was definitely like 8 or 9 months pregnant. And I also started lifting. This wasn't when I was pregnant with Kimball. Like I didn't start right with the beginning of my pregnancy. Like I actually started lifting a little bit further into it because I had the guidance of her. And I thought it was super helpful to just maintain a little bit of strength training throughout. So
yeah, there's definitely like programs
we need more resources.
We do. So I was like, you can find resources. I get from
these questions. I'm like, oh, I wish we had more straightforward answers for you.
I mean, you can find resources, but then, and like plans out there, but they're not always necessarily for athletes. And and what I vote, like, man, we're all just making it up. I remember being at the gym and just thinking, man, we're all just making this up. So the other postpartum question that we had in here was they're tentatively planning on doing a 70.3 8 months postpartum, which is, I mean, whatever. After everything, is that realistic? And I feel like the answer is, of course, like, does it depend? But also, Also, sure. I mean, yes, you could. Completely depends on how that goes, but you shouldn't think it's not possible. Like, but you also like don't want to rush it and end up with pelvic floor prolapse, right? Right.
Yeah. Yes. So keep it on there and adapt as necessary.
Yeah. And I'm also assuming that this wouldn't be the individual's first 70.3.
No.
If it's not their first, then yeah, keep it on the calendar. It's not categorically a bad idea.
Right. Those are our amazing answers about pregnancy. Before we move on to race questions, we're going to wrap up with some kind of race skills questions, which are, well, first off, are carbon shoes worth it if you're not, a podium type athlete?
Was that the question?
Yes, that is the question. Question mark. Are they worth it?
I mean, so you can be a fast athlete and not hit the podium. So let's be clear about that. There's plenty of fast athletes who are not racing for the podium. My understanding is that the carbon plates provide a greater benefit the faster you go. So if you're running 11-minute miles, you're not likely to get the same benefit from them than if you're running 8-minute miles. The other consideration is whether your kind of biomechanics are sound enough that you're going to actually be springboarding. If your biomechanics aren't great, then you're absorbing a lot of the impact, even with that carbon plate. And I think that's where people tend to find more injuries, because we are seeing more about people getting injured using the carbon plate shoes. So I would say that it's less about whether you're hitting the podium and more about your biomechanics and I guess to some extent your run pace. But I don't know. I'm mixed on the carbon shoes. I think that they definitely help, but they also aren't the magic bullet. Like, focus on your training first.
Exactly. That's what I'm thinking. Like, if you're a beginner triathlete, there's so many other places to get these seconds. And yeah, the carbon shoes, 100% they're faster. Like, right? Like, it's just the same as if you buy a faster bike, you're faster. So depending on, I guess, your financial situation and also like your goals, but there are so many that wouldn't be, even for our development athletes. I think, okay, like they're all racing in carbon shoes, but even just in terms of their equipment, it's like, just get started in triathlon, find out what it is, see if you like it, then decide how much you want to invest in it. And if like running fast is your goal, the carbon shoes will 100% help you with that and give you like a fastest time. Although, like Alison said, there might be a few like caveats depending on biomechanics and pacing. But I would just start with other things first. If it's a true like beginner triathlete.
Sure. And then what key open water skills should they practice before a race if they're new to open water?
Oh, get out there. Get out there in the open water with a community, or at least one other person. Like, it doesn't have to be a community, but just don't go alone. Practice just being with, like, swimming with others. If that part can actually be in a pool or open water if you don't have open water. But if you can get kind of used to feeling congested around like having other people around you in the water, especially if that's something that makes you nervous, and nothing is going to be like the actual race until you race. But the more you can kind of familiarize yourself with that feeling. Sighting is a big part of it. So you can make sure you know where you're going, having equipment like goggles that you can see out of, and feeling confident that on race day, like, you have a plan, they're not going to fog up. You can do a whole bunch of things with that, like put in like baby soap if you want to. You can use spit, and you can have a droplet of water in to kind of keep it clear. But I think the main difference is just being able to navigate when you don't have lines and when you're not in lanes, and you're just going to be around a lot of people and also no walls. So you can even do that part in a pool of like not touching the wall. So you can make sure that the distance of the race, you feel comfortable that you don't need to like stop, stand, or anything like that. So you can actually emulate a lot in the pool, but I would say it'd be good to get it in open water if you can safely before the race.
Yeah, I agree with a lot of that. And I think, the fastest way out of the water is to swim in a straight line and not take any breaks. So sighting is a huge piece of swimming in a straight line. You have to know how to do that and navigate and stay on track. And then the not taking any breaks, a lot of people don't feel comfortable in open water. It's a really different environment. You can't see the bottom. Sometimes you can't even see your hand in front of your face. And so we have a very kind of nervous system anxiety response to that. Or a lot of people do. And so you can't reason yourself out of that nervous system response. And so having an understanding of grounding techniques so that you can bring your nervous system back down to a state of calm is how you get to keep swimming. And so kind of getting familiar with some of those, a lot of them are sensory based, like name 3 things you smell, which you can't really do in open water. But things like categories, so naming vegetables, flowers, cars, vacation spots, fruits, whatever you want to do, or reciting routines like this is how I make my favorite smoothie. I'm a math person, so I always default to multiplication tables as a good idea, but not everyone likes multiplication tables. But the idea, the way I kind of couch it is, you want to basically be thinking about things that you wouldn't be thinking about if you were fleeing a burning building. Because your brain's like, oh, if we're just naming vegetables, then we're obviously not seeing a burning building. That's not what would happen. And so then you bring the nervous system down to a state of calm. That and exhaling is huge. Most people take short, shallow breaths, and then they feel like they can't breathe. The reason they feel like they can't breathe is that their lungs are full of carbon dioxide.
Right.
And you have to exhale to get the carbon dioxide out so you can take a full and deep inhale of fresh oxygen. And then the exhaling also helps because that is another grounding technique. So if you're exhaling and you can then get your nervous system back down with these grounding techniques, then you get to keep swimming and then you get out of the water.
Yeah. I don't know how that maybe this isn't the best. You guys can correct me if this is the wrong thing to say for athletes who are racing more in the age group level, but keeping in mind that even though there's a ton of people in the water, probably only like 4 people are going to be around you. In the sense of like, it always feels, I think, like everybody's on top of one another, but usually it's not as many as you think. So find the space if you need space. And if you want to optimize, find the feet or find the head and swim like on the side of someone. But just trying to like keep in mind, like you're in a big body of water, and maybe that sounds scary in some ways, but it also means there's more space than it's going to feel like there is.
Yeah. And you can swim wide. I'm always fascinated that you can be swimming, like group of people can be 10 and 20 yards wide. And then you get to the buoy and it shrinks down, like everyone on top of each other. There's no reason you can't go wide around those buoys.
We should bring up the buoys. The buoys can be.
Buoys can be stressful. Well, I was going to say, this brings us to our kind of last question, which is probably more for Alison, but how to deal with the rolling starts. Like, where should I line up?
Yeah.
Like, what do I need to know about this? Because it's a little weird.
I will say from a swimming experience for athletes who are less comfortable in open water, this is much more comfortable experience than a wave start. So when you have a wave start, every wave has fast people and slower people. And so as you're kind of moving through the swim course, the waves are spreading out and overlapping each other. So you're surrounded by people who are swimming different paces. Right. These self-seated rolling starts mean that you're generally surrounded by people swimming the same pace as you are. And so you eliminate a lot of the issues of someone swimming over me, I'm swimming over someone else, because everyone's just kind of moving through the swim course together. So I do think that they might feel weird in some ways, but they result in a calmer swim experience for most people.
So seed yourself correctly is what you're saying.
That is huge. And some people be like, oh, I'm going to seed myself ahead of my pace because then I have more of a buffer, right? Then it means you're going to be swum over the whole time. And that's a bad idea. You're going to be miserable. So don't do that. You're going to have plenty of time. Seed yourself correctly. And the way you can do that, most people will swim even with a wetsuit a little bit slower in open water because of the walls and sighting and just, maybe taking a break. So I tend to have people add about 10 seconds per 100 to their split. And then you just, for a short course, for a 70.3, you multiply that number by 20. So if you swim 150 per 100 in the pool, add 10 seconds, you're at 2 minutes, times 20, it's a 40-minute swim. And then you put yourself more or less there. No one knows their exact swim time, right? It's going to be plus or minus some number of minutes. So you just want to be in the ballpark. You don't want to line up with the 30-minute swimmers if you're a 40-minute swimmer.
Right. All right. To close us out, this, because we've answered so many questions, guys, is I want you each to tell me what is like the most common question you hear from your athletes and then answer it. Ooh.
Mine isn't really a question, but can I say something I observe?
Sure. It should be a question.
Okay. Well, then come back to me.
No. I'm kidding. I was kidding. I was saying something. I was saying that you wish your athletes would ask about this.
The most common misconception of training, I think, is that it should feel good, and also that they should just keep getting better and better and better and better, like in a very small amount of time. So like champion workouts, like day after, like if they do one session, then the next time they do it, it should be better than that. And then the next time they do it, should be better, which like progress doesn't really work that way. And you'll run yourself into a deep hole very quickly. And so the biggest thing is gaining confidence from the consistency of like being the athlete that you show up to be each day. Like Alison talked about earlier, is like every day that an athlete shows up, they're a different person for what they're starting that session as. And so your expectations have to reflect that, and being okay with like pretty vanilla, I would say, sessions overall. Like you'll probably have really good ones, really bad ones, but just keeping it just so it's pretty neutral is a good place to be.
Yeah. So I would say I don't necessarily get the same question over and over, but there's the theme is very similar to Katie, kind of how do I interpret how this workout went, how this workout felt? How do I put that into context? And a lot of it is, I heard recently that, you should generally anticipate that you're going to have 20, maybe 25% of your workouts are going to feel great. 20 to 25 are going to feel pretty crummy. And then the middle 50%, maybe 60% if you're lucky, are going to feel meh. So you're not always going to feel good in training, and that's fine. And then just kind of knowing, again, along with what Katie said, that you can make progress in all three sports at the same time. And it's also very hard to build endurance for the first time. If it's like your first 70.3, your first Ironman, to build that kind of endurance and get faster. And then along with all of that, progress isn't necessarily linear. And so you just have to kind of always zoom out and be like, is what I'm doing now better than what I was doing a month or 2 months ago? And even if that just means I'm going longer at the same pace, that's better. Even if your FTP didn't get higher, even if your pace isn't improving, if you're riding longer and you're doing it, you're executing smarter, right? Like maybe you're doing a better job of giving yourself a warm up. Maybe you're a little bit more on top of your nutrition. That's all progress.
Yeah, there was also, guys, I got distracted and I was like, all right. Well, thank you so much for answering all these questions, and hopefully people found them helpful. Send in other questions you have. You can save them up for Alison, who will be at Feisty Fest to answer all kinds of triathlon questions. And we will be back next week with more of a, regular episode.